So I'm going to introduce myself again. My name is Azita. I'm the founder of Love Social, a digital media agency I started in Vancouver about 5 years ago. We just opened up our New York office. And we've been working with amazing corporations and nonprofits and people building communities and building movements for the last few years. And I've had the privilege of meeting incredible people today and throughout the conference. And one of the amazing people that we met was Nadira, and she has been awesome at interviewing everyone else. And now I get to interview her. I've never done that before, so let's take off. Nadira. Fist bump?
Yes, yeah. Fist bump.
All right. So this is great. I never get to do this.
I never get to do this either.
Awesome. So how did you get your start in what you do?
So my background is in poetry. My very expensive degree is in creative writing.
Where did you go to school?
Stanford.
Okay.
Go Cardinal. And my only graduate degree is from the National Bartending School of California.
Awesome.
Which is actually more useful than many other people's graduate degrees, I have to say. But you know, I'm from a family where there's lots of physicians. I got to Stanford as a freshman thinking I was going to be a doctor, like 90% of the university does. And then I thought, okay, I won't be a doctor, but I'll go to professional school and be a lawyer, mom. And then I thought I'll declare English. And then finally, senior year, I called and said, I'm going to be a poet. And you can imagine how that went over.
Click, mostly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. See you later.
Silence.
Yeah.
She fainted on the other end of the phone. But I had the good fortune of editing the undergrad paper at Stanford, which is a daily newspaper, and just having that experience combined with the creative piece of it, and really being at the cusp, because I'm at the leading edge of Gen Y, at the cusp of this shift toward this full life and this idea of living your best life as a whole person. I came to journalism in that way, thinking this can be really cool, and it can be really creative, and it can be really disruptive. And there's so many amazing journalists that I've gotten the chance to work with that there was never a downside. I was just learning all the time. So
that's amazing. And it's interesting because I think living your best life and kind of really taking your life by the horns is a millennial theme, for lack of a better term. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this generation, we're sort of emboldened and excited about that theme, but I think we get it from all the folks that we've learned from, right? Boomers like to complain about Gen Y or millennials, but I often say, who did we learn this from, right? We learned it from our boomer parents. Prior to the baby boom, nobody thought work was supposed to be fulfilling.
Right.
You plowed your field and fed your family, and that was the point of work. And so, am I wrong? I'm not wrong. And suddenly, here come the baby boomers coming out of a time that was very stressful, obviously, in our history. And they were the ones that showed up to work saying, work should be rewarding. Work should be about who you are and what you represent. And in a lot of ways, I think they weren't able to live out that mission in the way that they wanted, and so they brought their children up to do that. And Xers, I think, are sort of the generation stuck in the middle, so sometimes they are the angriest about the things that have happened.
The middle child.
The middle child. And
sorry.
Exactly. But the great thing about a middle child, I'm an oldest, I don't know, are you?
Baby.
Yeah, see, totally makes sense. So the person who would be sitting right here is essentially the person who is, I think, challenged in the beginning and in the growing up. But what I think I find about middle kids as they get older is that they really enjoy being mentors when they can do that to the youngest. And I think that's what Xers have become. As they grow into leadership and management, I'm so heartened to see them get excited about bringing millennials into the fold. So that's something that I think is really positive. So I think our best life attitude has actually trickled up or evaporated or whatever the proper.
It's contagious.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. Has poetry influenced the way that you approach journalism?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I think, younger people, I'm still young, younger people will ask me, should I go to J school or whatever have you. And I think what we all do as observers, and really all of us should be this, right, is to reflect our who we are and the things that we value, and to really be able to absorb that from people around us. And having to study poetry and also writing poetry, you just learn to think about the world in a different way and to be creative in that way. And I think journalism is one of those things, and writing in general, that's sort of suffered in some ways because of what's happened in the technology space. And I don't think that's permanent. I think we're just sort of in a moment where we need to find a new equilibrium.
Correction.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's really important to remember that words matter, and they can be constructed in lots of different ways, and images matter, and thoughts matter, and people matter. And that's what poetry taught me and continues to teach me.
That's amazing. What are you most excited about probably in the next 2 years that you see changing?
Oh, well,
2 years because that's the way I think. That's the long-term trend from here.
Which is a millennial characteristic too.
Can we do a drinking game every time we say millennial? No? Nobody? It's fun. All right.
Oh my gosh. That would be breaking news probably.
Yeah.
I think what's going to be really cool is that millennials are aging into their 30s now, right? I'm 32. At the leading edge, you heard Jose this morning talk about being 31.
Yeah.
And I think we are finally growing up in the traditional sense. So to see millennials, particularly in the bigger cities where we've delayed marriage and children for some time, to see millennials become parents, to see them put down roots in some way and see how they're going to do that is going to be really fascinating, because many of you are probably guilty of saying, wait till you get married and have kids. Then all this stuff is going to be over. Right? We won't need to talk about meaning and everything else. And I actually don't think that it's going to change as much as...
Me neither.
Yeah.
I think it's a converging trend overall. I think a lot of the trends that we're seeing are actually just behavioral shifts towards a space that we can't help but grow into anymore, because the world can't do the way that it's been doing things. We can't produce and manufacture and distribute things that we don't need the way that we have, and we can't take in communication in terms of advertising in that one form kind of way. So I think the trends that we're seeing, though they're being captivated or labeled as millennial, it's really just the way the space is moving overall.
It's the world, and we're reflecting it more than other generations are. But as I said, it's going up the chain more than anything else. And what'll be really fascinating is what happens with these Gen Z kids, as we're calling them already, because I think the world that they are coming into is dramatically different, and it's changing so much faster. What people don't realize about sociology in particular is that these generational shifts, it used to be a generation was 25 years, right? 25 years bookended by two sort of big geopolitical events. And now the difference between me at 32 and my youngest brother at 22 is like dramatic. Yeah. Facebook wasn't around when I was in school, never mind texting. He's on Halo. His best friend is somebody he met playing World of Warcraft. I mean, who lives in like Florida and is a tattoo artist. My poor parents, right? So it's like, and Bo is wonderful, so hello, Bo, wherever you are. But I think that's a really different world that is just 10 years apart, and that's only going to become more dramatic.
Do you think the ability to connect with anyone anywhere makes us closer or pulls us apart?
I think it makes us, it forces us to be more thoughtful about the answer to that question. Mm-hmm. Because I think right now we are more disconnected a lot of the time. But I think if there's one theme that you heard today in all the speakers that we listened to, it is really about connecting. And once you get people together in a room, they want to connect. We want to connect, right? What are we all doing here? Talking about drinking games and hanging out together. It's about getting to know each other. And I think where millennials have struggled is we weren't really taught those skills.
Right.
And because in a lot of ways we had all this technology and other things that were being kind of forced on us in a lot of moments, we didn't learn to connect in some of these more natural ways. So people will say to me, like, why can't you just pick up the phone and talk? Some people, don't want to do that.
They just Snapchat now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Talking is hard sometimes, and so really it's true.
Guys, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. It's like, and there's these jokes about people being in the office and texting each other rather than emailing. Managers constantly complain to me about the young person who will email about a problem rather than talking. And I'm like, well, you go and talk to them. They don't know that's what they're supposed to do. He's 22. You're the one that kind of is setting the tone. So just understanding the degree to which things have changed and we haven't had a chance to sort of learn some things that people used to think were endemic to being human and maybe are not. And that some of the behaviors we have learned have made us have challenged us in a lot of ways. And so I think some of the speakers mentioned today disconnecting and that being a deliberate trend that you're seeing with millennials. And I think that's going to become more the case. And then you'll see that connection starting to happen more because of our deliberate focus on it.
I'm going to pull back to the journalism thing because that's a space that you're in, and technology has totally changed journalism. And for you, since you came to market and you've done amazing interviews with many people and you've been kind of in the forefront of a lot of very, very well-respected publications, how have the publications changed and how are they evolving to the space around technology?
Oh, well, this is a challenging question, and a great question.
You're welcome.
I'm like, how long do we have, Azita?
6 minutes.
Right. Just enough. So, coming from the background I came from, I have a very sort of traditional sounding resume, but I was able to do it in very non-traditional ways. So I came out of school to a small urban lifestyle publication that was like 10 people. I got to do everything from like accounting, literally, to like photo to actually write. And I always tell young people, like, that is a great thing to do, just to get that clinic experience, because we're now moving to a model where everybody who's a journalist has to be able to do everything. That being said, I think it's really important for us to go back to that words matter idea and to not so much react to what's happening in the marketplace, but rather to set the trends and set the tone. And I don't know that journalism, and I would put magazines and publishing and television and digital all in the same space. I don't know that anybody is yet being thoughtful enough about how they're setting that tone and how.
What publication do you think is doing a really good job of merging into this space?
My career's over.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. National Geographic.
Yeah.
That is the one magazine, and I've written for lots of magazines, but that's the one magazine I always read. I do not subscribe because I make a point of going and buying it on the newsstand so I can see it the way readers do. And I think that's what support is. But I also think Nat Geo does a great job of existing in all platforms authentically. So when you see something on Nat Geo on TV, it doesn't feel like, oh, that was a magazine article translated to television. And when you look at what they do digitally, it feels very natural and organic as a digital property. And I think they really think about that.
Well, their core value proposition, I would say, is images, obviously beautiful photography, and we absorb images 60,000 times faster than text. So they're kind of like come out of the gate winning on that one.
Yeah. But they have great words.
They have great words.
And that's the thing. They invest in each of those silos as independently important, and I think that it shows in the work. And I don't think that's ever going away. I just think the market for it, is going to be a bit narrower.
Have you had an aha moment in any of your interviews lately that has really like shaken you up or changed the way you think about something? Other than this incredible interview that you're having right now?
Which is incredible, actually. I mean, hello, first-time interviewer. It's fantastic. I think I've had, this is going to sound funny, if you can have the opposite of an aha moment.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So with my book, the way that it sort of came about is that I had been at a wonderful, very cushy by journalism standards staff position. And I got to the point where I mean, I love these people. They were my family. It's a tough business, and so when you're in the trenches together, you become very committed to each other. But I sort of was looking up the chain, and I was thinking, do I want to be these guys in like 10 or 20 or 25 years? Like, I don't know. I'm not so sure. And I'm not even sure sometimes they want to be them. You just open the newspaper and you're like, wow, it's not fun to be CEO of anything right now at all. And I remember talking to a mentor of mine who's in his 50s, and he said to me, if you stay where you are right now, you could be where those 50-year-old managers are at 30. And I was like, that's kind of good, but really kind of not so good, right? Because yes, the things that you're thinking are important, which is the salary and the title and the vacation time and the prestige conferences and all those kinds of things, those things are great. But what about the rest of me?
Right.
And it wasn't just the rest of my life or the rest of my work, it's what about the rest of me? And that was the moment where I was like, I need to get out of this stream. Like in, how many of you have seen Jurassic Park? Yeah, okay. So the scene where Timmy's coming down the tree and the truck is coming, and as a 13-year-old seeing that movie for the first time, I was like, Timmy, go to the left. Why are you under this truck that is just coming down and gonna land on your head? And when my mentor said this to me, I was like, I am Timmy right now, and what I need to do is go to the left. I need to get out of the way of this truck, which is very wonderful and very attractive, of this truck falling on me. No matter how great a truck it is, I'm gonna be squished at the bottom of this tree, and that's not gonna be awesome. And so just really recognizing that you don't have to be in the path that you're in. Just because everybody else has done it that way doesn't mean you have to do it that way. And what a blessing for us at the time that we are sort of growing up and coming into this space, that we have all these resources and all these tools and all these great examples, including yourself and everybody else that we heard today, of people who are a testament to the fact that you can go build your own life.
100%.
And I think that's what we're kind of all doing, right? It's awesome.
I love that.
It's awesome.
I'm gonna ask one more question because we have time.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest learning lesson that you've had covering this generation?
I think that we love to talk to grown-ups, to older people. One of the things Gen Y don't
Please
realize,
explain.
I will. One of the things people don't realize about Gen Y is that we really respond to expertise. And I forget who it was earlier today. I might have been Aaliyah that said, you know, this generation doesn't want to hear from the VP of such and such or whatever have you, because that's traditionally how people have thought of as of expertise. It's the person who has the title and who's been given that position on the org chart, technically, and so they get to have that role. But when I talk to young people, they're like, gosh, I love talking to that 70-year-old consultant that comes in once a month because he has the best stories, or he's the one that's got this leadership experience that I just will never get from anyone else. And I think that to me is extremely encouraging.
Totally.
And it should be really encouraging to all of you. When you see millennials in the workplace, I think you want to point them to yourselves and all the other people who've got real, tangible stories and experience to tell them, because storytelling is a thing that's going to sort of not just advance this generation, but just advance this cause. And I think that's always going to be true.
I love that. Well, to quote NPR's New Generation Listen platform, whose tagline is "Stories are everything," I think we'll call it a night. Thank you so much, Nadira.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.